Hi, everyone, and welcome back to yet another cracking edition of the MBANJ Show. This is the Secrets of Fail series where we're talking to business leaders, CEOs, all about their epic business blunders and what they learned from that experience. And with me on the line from the bright lights of New Jersey is Laura Brandau. Laura, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, Matt. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Hi, very welcome, very welcome. So why don't you kick us off with the elevator pitch? What are you up to as Laura Brandau?
Awesome. Well, I am a whole lifelong mortgage executive. So I've been in the mortgage and real estate business for my entire career. And then in 2018, someone asked me to take the stage for the very first time in my life. And that was a pivotal moment that changed everything. Although I was successful in the mortgage side, once I took that stage and realized that I had a voice, everything changed. In that moment, I realized not only do I have something to share, but I have the ability to allow others their voice to be able to be confident for them to share their story, their journey, whether it's through my books, whether it's through my podcasting, whether it's helping them as an executive coach, or actually doing lots of things in terms of women empowerment in the mortgage industry.
Amazing stuff, amazing stuff. So who's your typical customer then? Is it anyone in corporate, or do you have a sort of a sweet spot? Are they CEOs or CFOs?
Most of it is mortgage and real estate professionals. Okay. Now, that could be anything from a salesperson, someone in operations, or at the executive level. So I would say all encompassing between mortgage and real estate.
Okay, beautiful. So Laura, let's get on with the meat and the potatoes of this show. What is your story of fail for our audience around the world today?
Right. Well, first off, I want to say, Matt, I struggle with saying anything is a failure because in my mind, I believe every single thing that we experience is a life lesson. It's something to learn and grow from. So I don't define things as, quote, a failure, because regardless if it went different than you expected, it still taught you something that you can take to turn into a success. So when I think back on something that maybe didn't go as I expected, I'll take you back to 2011, 2012. Now, the mortgage industry was a very, very manual industry. What that means is that we literally had paper files. I'm speaking 500, 1,000 pages of paper inside file folders. And in 2011 or 12, I decided I've had enough of killing trees. I've had enough of printing, having copiers going every minute of the day and night, printing papers, that we had to go digital. Now, although it seems so primitive, right? But that's what we did at that time. So I get the idea. We're going to go digital. We're going to get rid of all of this paper. We couldn't do it. It was an absolute struggle because the team that I had in place, they had never done that before. They were used to literally a thumb that went through papers and they could write notes. They weren't used to having to look at a screen and have multiple screens and processing information that way, to the point that after months of struggling with this, I gave up. I said, that's it. I'm done with this. I'm no longer going to hear the frustration and the complaints of everybody saying, please let me go back to the paper. I gave up. And I sat there and I thought to myself, there has to be a way to change this mindset. And this is what I did. At that time, we all worked in an office. This was before remote and before everybody working from home. We all sat in an office. I got an idea and I said, okay, what if I go out and I hire 2 people from like maybe South Jersey to where technically they could drive to the office, even it'd be probably about an hour drive. But let's say they could, but I'm not hiring them for the office. I'm going to hire them to work from home. And I'm going to make them only do things digitally with no paper. Well, think of what happened. Number one, they did it. And number 2, all the people that worked in the office started getting a little nervous because they said, wait a minute, Laura's figured out that if she can hire people remotely and have them do it virtually, and we are stuck in our ways and are causing us to spend all this money on paper and time and effort and everything else, well, then we had better heck learn how to do it digitally.
It's amazing story.
And that was one of my failures.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, exactly, one of thousands, right? I mean, that's how you become successful, I suppose. So what did that experience teach you? Like, what do you hang your hat on there around key lessons or that you take with you now moving forward?
So what it taught me was that you have to look at the full scope of things, because it's not so much of just getting the idea of saying, okay, I'm going to take this company digital. You have to understand, number one, how does this affect the other person? How are they going to adopt and adapt to this change that I'm asking them to go through, right? Because I only thought of how great this was going to be because I was going to save money from a company standpoint. I was going to pick up efficiency. So I'm looking at it from an executive standpoint. But what I didn't do is put myself in their shoes. I didn't get their feedback. I didn't bring them into the meetings when I was planning out how to make this change and hear from their perspective how this was going to make them feel, how this was going to slow them down, how this was going to cause frustration. So I learned that I can't make decisions as an executive without including everyone at the table to be able to get their feedback and their insights as to the best way to make that change.
So Laura, if you could get into the Matt Brown Show time machine and kind of go back to yourself, before this whole experience happened, what would you do differently and why?
Right. So number one is I would have other people at the table. It wouldn't just be me and my technology team. I would actually bring those group of people that I was asking, a few of them, not the whole team. I would have segregated people. Then I wouldn't cause everyone to have to make the change at the same time. I would start with a beta test. And I would have a few people that were part of a pilot program so that they could provide feedback and work very closely with me and the technology team to be able to make adjustments and learn how to perfect it before we rolled it out to the rest of the team.
Yeah, it's funny how hindsight's always a perfect science, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so what is your advice to other CEOs, other entrepreneurs, other business leaders about the importance of failing in business success?
Right. Well, there's always going to be times when, again, what you expect is going to happen is not quite what does happen or what does occur. I would say that the best advice is to constantly go back. You just said it. Hindsight is 20/20. Analyze everything that is occurring. Recognize the things that are working and the things that did not have that expected outcome, because you can learn things from every single side of stuff. The stuff that goes well, make sure that you repeat it. The stuff that does not go as expected, analyze and go back and say, what could I have done better? Who else could I have at that table to have a voice and have a perspective? One of the biggest things, like I just said, that I've learned over my career is that you can't make decisions in a vacuum. You have to make sure that you have the right people in that setting that are representing different points of views, because otherwise you're never going to get the outcome that you're looking for.
Yeah, I wrote about this idea of triangulation in my book. So basically, let's say you think you need to make a decision, so you have a hypothesis, and to your point, you test that, right? So you go, cool, well, here's what I'm thinking. I want to make this decision. What do you think? And so you triangulate, right? So Obviously, in a forum, a group forum is not the right context. It should be a one-to-one perspective conversation story. And obviously, you only get perspective or advice from people you trust. That's another thing. But if you take that hypothesis and you keep testing it, invariably you're going to triangulate on a truism, right, or some kind of truth that you can then take forward in terms of your decision-making process and then execute on it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So, Laura, are there any books, tools, or resources that you recommend other CEOs or entrepreneurs use on their journey?
I'm not going to specifically call out any one particular book, but what I would say is leaders are learners. You have to continually, I will tell you, for me, I can only read things that I grow from, that I learn from, right? I don't enjoy just reading to read. It has to be something that I absolutely get some value of. And I'm a very well-rounded leader. For example, yesterday I was reading Jay Shetty's book, about being a monk, right? I've read that book before. It's not something new, but I was just in the mood that I needed to read that book, right? And I was reading about the different dogmas and the different segment, and how if you're a leader, this is where you could go to the dark side, and this is how you accentuate, right? Or if you're a creator, if you're a maker. That just happened to be how I was feeling yesterday, right? Now going forward, maybe I'm like, you know what? I need to do a little John Maxwell and go into, the concepts of leadership and stuff like that. So depending on what my mood is and what I need to remind myself or feed my brain, I'm very diverse. But as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as business professionals, we owe it to ourselves to constantly fulfill our brains with different types of information. You shouldn't just look to, okay, how to run a business, how to maximize profit. That's great. Of course, you want to sprinkle that in with your marketing. You want to sprinkle that in with your motivation and inspiration and understanding your why and your purpose, how to form and great relationships and working with others. All of that collectively goes together. Try different voices, because every different author, every different podcast, wherever you're getting your information, be diverse in it. Because again, it's just like that seat at the table. You can't listen to one voice. You have to have that diversity, because that's how we become all well-rounded. I'll give you an example. I love TED Talks. I absolutely love them. And what I do, if I'm driving somewhere, I don't even pick them out based on the subject. I randomly just hit play. I don't care what the topic is. One moment it could be climate control. The next moment it could be philosophy. The next moment it could be inspiration. The next moment it could be about physics. Whatever the topic is, it doesn't matter, because it feeds my brain. And the next time I'm in a meeting or I'm out to dinner with a client, it's amazing how things come up. So as far as books or any of that kind of stuff, be diverse.
It's really good advice, right? And also take what works for you and leave the rest. I think it's also a very key thing. Like, there's so much good information, but it may not work for you. You know what I mean? We're all different, and I think oftentimes these gurus, formulaically, like, it's like, this is how you do stuff. It's like, no, that's how you do stuff. I'll take steps 3, 4, and 5, but I'm going to leave the rest because it doesn't suit me for whatever reason. So. But Laura, you're an absolute powerhouse, dude. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being vulnerable and giving your perspective on the importance of, let's not call it failure, but teaching moments. I appreciate you for that.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime. Thanks, everyone. See you again soon.